Welcome back to True Crime Documentary YouTube channel. Have you ever wondered what happens when love, the bond we think is unbreakable, is built on lies, betrayal, and dark secrets? What if the happiest day of your life, the day you say, "I do," turns into a nightmare that destroys everything? In this story, a wedding, meant to symbolize love and commitment, transforms into a tragedy of heartbreak and bloodshed. Set in a quiet, upscale neighborhood, this is the tale of Derek, Leah, and Terren, three people bound by fate, friendship, and forbidden love. Their choices will forever change their lives in ways they never could have imagined. This is where love turns deadly. It all begins with Derek, Leah, and Terren, three people who seem inseparable. From the outside, their bond appears as unshakable as any friendship could be. Derek and Terren had been close for years, bound by a deep, unspoken connection, while Leah entered their world and quickly became the love of Derek's life. Leah was the picture-perfect bride, excited to marry the man she thought she knew. She admired Derek's loyalty, his charm, and the close relationship he had with Terren, who would stand by his side as his best man. To Leah, their bond was a sign of Derek's ability to love deeply. She felt lucky to be marrying a man so capable of true friendship. But what Leah didn't know was that Derek and Terren's relationship went far beyond mere friendship. There was a hidden world behind those smiles, stolen glances, and fleeting touches. While Leah was busy with wedding preparations, obsessing over the flowers, the seating charts, and the perfect gown, Derek was struggling with a secret that was threatening to tear him apart. He loved Leah, but his heart was caught in a web of desire, guilt, and forbidden love. He had shared something with Terren that Leah could never know, and as the wedding day drew closer, the weight of that secret became unbearable. Terren, too, was trapped in this emotional turmoil. He had been Derek's confidant, his rock, for as long as he could remember. But their friendship had turned into something deeper, more intense. It was a love that neither of them had planned for, and now it was threatening to destroy everything they had built. To understand how this all began, we must go back to when Derek and Terren first crossed the line from friendship to something more. It had been a night like any other. They had spent countless evenings together, but on this particular night, there was an undeniable tension in the air. As they sat together, talking quietly, the atmosphere shifted. A glance lingered a second too long. A touch felt more intentional. Suddenly, the boundary between them, the invisible line that had always kept them just friends, was shattered. In that moment, everything changed. They crossed over into dangerous territory neither of them could easily define nor explain. What followed was confusion, passion, and fear. They didn't plan for it, but there it was, a truth too complicated to face, a desire that couldn't be ignored. Derek loved Terren, but how could he reconcile that with the life he had built with Leah? Could he keep pretending that nothing had changed? In the days and weeks that followed, Derek and Terren kept their affair a secret. They met in quiet moments, shared knowing looks when no one was watching, and tried desperately to bury their feelings. But no matter how hard they tried to suppress it, the truth gnawed at them both. Leah, meanwhile, continued planning the wedding, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. She had no idea that the man she loved was being torn apart by the life he thought he was supposed to live, and the life he had tasted with Terren. As the wedding day drew nearer, Derek's internal struggle became more pronounced. His behavior grew more erratic, swinging between moments of joy and deep despair. He threw himself into the wedding preparations, hoping that by focusing on the details, he could silence the voice inside him that screamed to face the truth. But no amount of distraction could calm the storm raging in his heart. Terren was feeling the pressure too. He watched as Derek seemed to unravel, his smiles forced, his laughter hollow. Terren's heart ached, knowing that soon their secret would either destroy them or be buried forever. With every passing day, the tension between them grew heavier, and the thought of Derek marrying Leah while still harboring feelings for Terren became an unbearable burden. Leah, blissfully unaware, was caught up in the excitement of her wedding day. The dress was perfect, the venue was beautiful, and the guest list was finalized. But there were signs she was beginning to notice, small things that she couldn't explain. Derek seemed distant, preoccupied. At first, she wrote it off as wedding jitters, but in her gut, she knew something was wrong. The night before the wedding, Derek lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind racing. He was about to marry the woman who loved him, but his heart was screaming for someone else. Could he really go through with it? Could he bury the truth forever and live the life everyone expected of him? Finally, the wedding day arrived. Leah looked stunning as she walked down the aisle, her eyes filled with love and hope. Derek stood at the altar, his heart pounding, but not from excitement. He felt trapped. As Leah approached, each step felt like a countdown to a life he wasn't sure he could live. Terren, standing beside Derek as his best man, was a picture of calm on the outside, but inside he was a storm of emotions. He had to watch the man he loved commit to someone else, knowing that the vows Derek was about to say would seal the end of whatever they had shared. Derek's hands trembled as he took Leah's. The words of the vows caught in his throat. His eyes drifted to Terren, standing just a few feet away, forcing a smile. That smile was filled with pain Derek could feel deep in his soul. How had they gotten to this point? How had everything become so complicated, so impossible? As the ceremony continued, Derek felt like he was moving through a dream, a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Vows were exchanged, rings were slipped onto fingers, and in the eyes of everyone watching, Derek and Leah were now husband and wife. But for Derek, the moment was anything but joyful. It felt like the closing of a door, one that he could never reopen. At the reception, the mood was jubilant. Everyone was celebrating, but Derek felt like a man on the edge of a cliff, teetering on the brink of disaster. Leah beamed with happiness, unaware that the man she had just married was drowning in guilt and confusion. Terren, too, struggled to keep up appearances. Each congratulatory toast felt like another stab to the heart. Every smile he offered Leah felt like a betrayal. The secret hung over them both like a dark cloud, and every passing moment made the weight of it harder to bear. As the reception began to wind down, Derek's behavior grew increasingly distant. Leah, finally noticing that something was wrong, tried to engage him, but his responses were curt, his mind elsewhere. Derek couldn't stop thinking about Terren. He knew he needed to talk to him, to figure out what they were going to do next. He couldn't go on like this. Later that night, after everyone had gone to bed, Derek found himself lying awake, unable to sleep. The weight of the day, of the lies, of the double life he had been living, was too much to bear. He couldn't continue pretending, not to Leah, not to himself, not to Terren. Quietly, he slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Leah. The halls of the hotel were silent as he made his way to Terren's room, each step feeling heavier than the last. When Terren opened the door, they didn't need words. The look in Derek's eyes said it all. They sat in silence for what felt like hours, each lost in their own thoughts, their own guilt. Finally, Derek spoke. He confessed his love for Terren, the confusion, the fear. He didn't know how to move forward, but he knew he couldn't go back. Terren, his heart breaking, didn't have the answers either. They were both trapped, caught in a web of love, guilt, and betrayal. In the quiet of the room, the emotions they had been holding back erupted. The tension that had been simmering for months finally boiled over, and in a moment of weakness, they gave in to their desire. It was a brief, desperate attempt to cling to something that they both knew was slipping away. But the moment ended as quickly as it began, leaving them both with an even deeper sense of dread. Derek couldn't go back to Leah, not after this. He couldn't face her with the weight of what he had just done. Meanwhile, back in the bridal suite, Leah stirred. She reached out for Derek, but when her hand touched the cold, empty bed, panic set in. Where was he? Why wasn't he there? Her heart raced as she slipped out of bed, fear gripping her. Something was wrong. Leah's intuition led her to Terren's room. She knocked softly, then harder, her anxiety growing with each unanswered knock. Finally, the door creaked open, and there stood Terren, disheveled and guilty. Leah's eyes moved past him, and there, sitting on the edge of the bed, was Derek, his face a mask of shame and despair. In that moment, Leah knew. The truth hit her like a freight train. Her husband, the man she had just married, had betrayed her in the worst possible way. She didn't need to hear the words. She could see it in their eyes. A flood of emotions surged through Leah. Betrayal, rage, humiliation. She demanded answers, but Derek could barely speak. The guilt was too overwhelming. Terren stood frozen, watching as the situation spiraled out of control. Leah's fury reached a boiling point, and in a blind rage, she grabbed a lamp from the bedside table. The room exploded into chaos. The lamp connected with Derek's head, sending him crashing to the floor. Blood pooled around him, and time seemed to stop. Terren rushed to Derek's side, trying to stop the bleeding, but it was too late. Derek's lifeless eyes stared back at him. The horror of what had just happened was too much to process. Leah stood frozen, her mind struggling to comprehend what she had done. She had killed him. The man she loved, the man she had vowed to spend her life with, was gone, taken by her own hand in a moment of uncontrollable rage. And so, in one night, a wedding filled with joy, love, and hope turned into a scene of unimaginable tragedy. The lives of Derek, Leah, and Terren were forever changed. The secrets they had tried so hard to hide had destroyed everything. This story is a stark reminder of the consequences of living a life built on lies. Derek, Leah, and Terren were all victims of their own choices, their own secrets. What was meant to be a celebration of love became a night of betrayal, violence, and loss. As we close this chapter, we're left with one lingering question. How long can we live with our secrets before they destroy us? When we bury the truth, who ultimately pays the price? If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Be sure to check out our other videos for more captivating stories. Take care, and we'll see you in the next one.